Hi everyone, my name is Renee Barnier. I'm the coordinator of academic coaching in the Academic Achievement Center. And today I'm going to be presenting on a little bit of an introduction to the Academic Achievement Center and also some college success skills that are hopefully going to be really valuable to you not only during your first semester at Bridgewater State, but also throughout your time at the university. So let's get started with a quick introduction to the AAC. The Academic Achievement Center is comprised of four main functional areas. Your first year advisor, many of you will just spend your first semester with your advisor in the Academic Achievement Center, and then we'll move on to a faculty advisor in a department. But mostly those advisors, at least in the first semester, if not the full year, will be in the Academic Achievement Center. You most likely have already met them for some form of orientation process or going over a registration schedule for the fall. So those folks hopefully will already be familiar to you, and if not, will be soon. Learning assistance is the second functional area. So learning assistance is comprised of academic coaching and tutoring, and we'll explain that in a moment. Testing services and disability resources. Disability Resources is currently changing their name, and so their new name will be on the next few slides where I share a little bit more about what they do. So really quick, just a little bit about academic advising so that you understand who you might be seeing in the coming months. So the folks on the top row are faculty advisors. The Academic Achievement Center has both faculty advisors and professional advisors. The faculty advisors are also faculty in a department. For example, Alexandra Adams teaches in the Department of Math and Sciences. Whereas our professional advising staff, starting with Kristen, ending with Donna towards the bottom row, their sole function on campus is to be your advisor or to meet with a student around these things, or to work with them on orientation, small group or large group programming, transfer workshops. So they have a massive role when it comes to orienting you to campus, getting you set up to register for your classes, helping you explore majors and minors, introducing you to other campus resources and making referrals if they're appropriate. And they're certainly there to talk to you about goal setting and academic challenges that you might be facing, withdrawing from a course that you're in or the university, but also talk to you about your graduation plan and your timeline for graduation, which you can see a sample of that right here. A lot of students will talk to their advisor about graduating in 4 years, right? What do I need to do each semester to do that? Some students may be looking at a 5-year timeline, while others may be looking at a 4-year plan, but perhaps they don't want to take the traditional course load. So an advisor would talk with them about how to take courses in the summer so that they could still achieve a 4-year graduation. That said, everyone's graduation plan is different and unique to their financial situation, their program of study, etc. Disability resources and student accessibility services. So formerly known just as Disability Resources, the office is now shifting their title to be more reflective of a language of empowerment and really explaining to a student that you can access your education using any of the resources we have available to you. So these are the staff in that office. Jenna Shales is the Associate Director. She works with Nicole, Sarah, Mike, and Tabitha to do the following things: review any documentation for a physical, emotional, or learning disability, and then work with a student collaboratively to determine if there are going to be academic accommodations necessary, assistive technology that could be used in the classroom, if a student might be interested in taking advantage of the pre-college workshop, which is offered a couple of days prior to the start of the semester for students to begin to get acclimated to campus and also the expectations of being a college student alongside peers. They offer opportunities for leadership training and development, as well as peer mentorship. So this is important to know because in a higher education setting at a college or university, the language around disabilities has changed. In terms of an IEP and a 504, our high school language that you may be familiar with, but we refer to academic accommodations or assistive technology as what we can support you with in college. So the language has shifted a little bit when you move from the K through 12 system into higher ed, and we're here to help you with that adjustment. Learning assistance, which I explained was one of the facets, is led by Catherine Chrysostomo. She is the assistant director. She oversees all of the efforts that go through for learning assistance. And then I work for Catherine as the coordinator for the academic coaching program, which I will explain momentarily. So I've thrown a couple of words out there. Learning assistance in the Academic Achievement Center is encompassing of tutoring and academic coaching. And those are two different things. So tutoring might sound familiar. Tutoring is when you work with someone or in a group setting to go over specific subject matter or content from your course, right? So if you're struggling in psychology or history or math, and it's the content that's challenging, working with someone to help you understand those concepts. Coaching is slightly different. Coaching helps a student understand how to learn, right? And so we go over different skill sets that can help you develop into a successful college learner. Something to keep in mind, tutoring is offered in two different ways. So if and when we are on campus for classes, there are learning centers in the Academic Achievement Center, Math Services, the Accounting and Finance Lab, the Writing Studio, and Second Language Services, which work with students on those particular areas to receive support for their classes. Typically, those services, those centers, just focus in on those courses, whereas Tutoring Central is a one-on-one tutoring matching service for courses, particularly in the core curriculum, or courses that are beginning level courses within a major. And sometimes we even hold drop-in sessions for classes that have high demand for tutors, like Phil 111, which is one of the core curriculum courses, some of the entry-level comm courses, economics courses, and biology and chemistry courses. Those can shift around every semester based on demand and need for tutors. Finally, the last piece of the Academic Achievement Center that you should know about is testing services. Testing services is headed up by Sharon Medeiros. She's the coordinator of the whole space. Kaylee Longi works with her as one of her testing operations specialists. You may not utilize testing services much after you've taken your math placement and writing placement essay until it gets closer to graduation, but they do offer a variety of on-campus testing options for students who are interested in taking the MTELs, the GREs, aviation exams, and CLEP exams. CLEP exams are good to know about because if you feel you're skilled in a certain area of expertise or content and you'd like to be able to test and take an exam for credit, you can pay a much cheaper fee than it would be to pay for a class, for example. And if you get a certain score on that exam, you can earn college credit without having to take a semester-long class in that same content area. So that's something good to think about, that you might use testing services for in between the time of when you start as a student for your placement exams and when you're getting ready to graduate and you might be looking at post-graduation options. The testing center also is community serving. So there are folks who will come from the surrounding community to take similar exams. So it's not just Bridgewater students that work with testing services. That was the quick rundown of the Academic Achievement Center, because there is a lot that goes on in one space with one cohesive staff. One thing that we are going to pull out of that falls under the learning assistance realm, which is the College Success Skills 101 piece, where we're talking a little bit about time management and professional academic communication, right? So all of the things that I've shared with you thus far are really important resources, and everyone in the Academic Achievement Center is trying to help you develop to be a successful student here at Bridgewater. I'm just going to spend a little bit more time on these particular skill sets because in my world of academic coaching, we see a lot of need for these kinds of conversations. So here we go. We're going to jump in with time management, and I want you to take 3 things away from our conversation today. I want you to take away the importance of prioritization, the importance of weekly planning, and also semester planning. And we're going to use a tool called the Semester at a Glance that I will introduce you to that the coaches use with students every semester. So first, when it comes to prioritization and making decisions around the things that you need to do on a daily and weekly basis to be successful in your classes and as a student who probably also has other commitments, I want you to try and start thinking about the tasks that you might confront as important and or urgent. So an important activity would have an outcome that leads to the achievement of your goals, okay? And an urgent activity is something that demands immediate attention and often is associated with the achievement of someone else's goals, right? So how do we get you looking at the things that you need to do that are important before they become terribly urgent, right? So consider the matrix that we're looking at on the right here. The important and urgent things can sometimes be crises, or they're very pressing, perhaps because too much time went by before they were addressed, or they're projects that are due within the next several hours. So for example, you can see that I've written here, you have a math test tomorrow. That's not only important, but there's a sense of urgency to study for and prepare for that test. Or in your personal life, perhaps your rent is due today. It's the first of the month and you've got to get that check out. That's both an important and an urgent task. For example, something that's important and not urgent is planning. Taking some time to write in your planner the weeks of assignments coming up that you have to consider and start working on. It's important to go out with friends. It's not necessarily urgent. It's important because you should have some kind of balance. Part of time management is making sure that you're not only taking care of your academic self, but also your mental health, your social health, your physical health. So you can see that where I've put exercise, but you can also see where I've put English paper due in 30 days. So you've got a month to work on your paper. It's important, but it's not knocking at the door of tomorrow. Following suit, you can see that there are things that are also not important, but they are urgent. So interruptions that we might face, ringing phones, other people's concerns that we take on as our own, right? So sometimes when we're in a virtual learning environment, we can see those not important but urgent things when we've got messages going off in Zoom or in Microsoft Teams, or we've got an email that we see pop up that we have to respond to. So sometimes quadrant number 3 can present itself in different environments differently as well. And finally, you have that fourth quadrant of not important and not urgent, right? These are things like watching TV and playing video games, things that aren't on any timeline, but perhaps we like or want to do them. So this is an important framework for thinking about your time and your tasks and how to prioritize what should be done first and what can be planned for later, perhaps what you can delegate to someone else, and what you could eliminate altogether, right? Which takes me to weekly planning. As you tease out what your priorities are and what you need to do versus what you might want to do or could do at a later date, I want you to think about the following things. You have a week's worth of time to divide responsibilities, to allocate time for certain things, especially thinking about when it makes sense to get certain things done in the day. Are you a morning person? Are you an evening person? When are you most productive? When are your energy levels high? When are you sleeping? When are you eating? When are you working? And then where do all of these other priorities and commitments filter in? Something to keep in mind with this weekly planner is that we have 168 hours in 1 week. My planner here only goes from 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. because I want you to sleep. But we do have 168 hours total. So how are you breaking that up? How are you allowing for your studies to be complete, and not just the time in class, but also study time outside of class, even if it's a virtual lecture, to review that material, to prepare for exams, to write papers? Are you scheduling work time? For example, on this weekly planner, the blue academic coaching squares, that is this particular person's work schedule. Around that, they not only have their study time, but they also have a morning routine. They meditate in the morning, then they go for a run. Then they make sure they're eating after their run and getting ready for work or studying. And there's also a lot of white open spaces. The beauty of filling out a weekly planner like this is that when you start to populate it with class and work, eating and sleeping times, meetings that are standing meetings, perhaps with a therapist or a doctor or an academic coach, around those things, whether you've written in the boxes or color coded your squares, you begin to see the white open spaces that you now have as either free time or time to move things around in your schedule. Not everyone fills out this weekly planner the same way. So for example, this is another graduate assistant who was not an academic coach, but worked also in the Academic Achievement Center. She clearly also liked to meditate. She had a morning routine there. But she just blocks off her time and color codes it in a different way. She labels things homework without saying homework for a certain class. She puts her field work in for her practicum experience. She puts her social commitments in, soul chats with friends, game night via Zoom. So you have to make this work for you. This particular graduate student also left their weekends totally open because for them, that time is flexible and unplanned, and it gives them a little bit of flexibility. So planning on a weekly basis, your study time, your class time, your work time, your eating time, your sleep time, your routines, your standing appointments, finding a way to color code them or mark them so that you can clearly see your off time, your open time, could be a way to plan for the semester that provides a sense of structure, routine, and also allows you to see what things you might need to change about your schedule in order to give yourself more time or to fill more time so that you feel more motivated to see the semester through. In addition to weekly planning, semester planning is really important. This calendar can be overwhelming for some students because it's a lot to see the whole semester at a glance, which is what this tool is called. So this is an example from spring 2019. And you can see that on this calendar, I've designated where spring classes begin, which is Wednesday, January 23rd, after your winter break. And when final exams begin and end, so the final day of the semester, May 14th at the bottom. And in between are all the weeks of the semester. How do you fill those weeks? Pulling out your syllabus from each of your classes that you receive, and perhaps that's pulling them up on Blackboard or printing out a hard copy so that you can review them, can be a handy way to partner with this tool. So for example, take one of your classes. Say you're in Phil 111 this semester. Pull up that syllabus. Look ahead at the class schedule, and ideally syllabi have class schedules with exam dates, paper deadlines, presentation deadlines, that kind of information. Find those dates and deadlines. Find when your assignments are due. And perhaps those are exams and papers. Perhaps your professor has designated a day for the midterm and the final. Maybe you have a presentation or multiple throughout the semester, and maybe you also have weekly standing assignments. Plugging those in for your Phil 111 class, for example, color coding it or writing it in a certain color or designating it in some way is one piece of the puzzle. Do that with all of your syllabus, which the plural of which is syllabi. So pull out all your syllabi and do that. You'll see that the calendar fills up, and it can look something like that. I'll give you a second to take that in. You can see that on the left, every Sunday, this person has a journal due by a certain time. And then you can see along the way that they've made notes of when they need to apply to graduate school, or when their 8 to 10 page paper is due for a certain class, when they're taking graduation pictures. So they're using this for personal but also academic reasons. Something that you can do is not only put your deadlines in, but then backtrack. So for example, on the 23rd of April, there's a paper due and it's 8 to 10 pages. That is something that you don't want to become important and urgent the night before on the 22nd, where you're writing all 8 to 10 pages in one evening. If this is a research paper, this is going to take more than one night and should take more than one night. So backtracking from the 23rd due date, how are you breaking up that paper so that you're writing 2 to 3 pages a day, and then also making sure that you have time before you can even begin to write to get some good solid research done and vet the sources that you're using and make sure that they're reliable. So the semester at a glance is a really good way to see the busy times in your semester and certain weeks that may have lots of due dates versus others that may be a little bit lighter. And then also help you begin to plan for when you're going to get work done on some of the major assignments, which can be helpful when you do have really busy weeks with multiple assignments due. The other way I like to use this calendar for myself is simply a way to track the passage of time. How far in the semester are we? There's always around 100 days in the semester. And so this can be a really good motivating technique for when you're feeling like you're stuck or you've got so much left to go. I'll use it with my students where we're halfway through the semester and they just simply don't realize that they've done already more than what they have left to do. So that is the 3 prongs of time management that I wanted to go over with you. The importance of prioritization, weekly planning, and semester planning. Within those planning pieces, things that you should be doing on a daily basis or weekly basis is the following, and this is surrounding professional academic communication. Getting into the routine of checking your Bridgewater email multiple times a day is crucial. Your Bridgewater email is how your professors, your advisor, the university, your peers may communicate with you. So getting in the habit of checking that email more than once a day is important. Oftentimes, you're not in a routine of checking that from coming from high school, and that's normal. But because it's the primary mode of communication for the university, it's really important to kind of normalize that and get into a habit of 2 to 3 times a day checking that email and making sure that you are up to date on any messages that you need to be aware of. I've worked with a lot of students who will go to class for an 8 a.m. one morning, and they'll get there, realize class was canceled, check their email, and their professor sent an email the night before, and they just didn't check their email when they got up in the morning. So while it may not feel normal or natural right away, it could save you some time in the long run. So checking your email multiple times a day, very important. The next thing around professional academic communication is building relationships with your professors and prioritizing their office hours. So you may use office hours, which is time designated by your professor for them to be available to you, whether that's in their office in person or online in a Zoom room or a Microsoft Teams room, however they are choosing to use their platforms. So if you use an office hour, it could be to ask a question about an upcoming exam. It could be to review a paper. It might be to ask for clarification on something that you found on the syllabus. You could, assuming that they've put their information on how to access their office hours on their syllabus, utilize your professor in that way. If they have not put that information on their syllabus, I would encourage you to email them to find out if and when they're offering office hours and when it would be mutually beneficial for you to meet with them based on your schedule and theirs. Finally, making sure that when you do communicate with your professors via email, that it's professional language and that the message is concise, clear, and something that's going to provoke a professional, clear, concise response. So for example, sending an email like this, emergency, we need to meet, when can I come by? assuming to your office hours, with no subject line, with no salutation, hello, how are you, good evening, with no details in the body, with no sign off from the student, may allow this email to go unanswered. A faculty member may not respond to this. They may not understand what it's about. They may wait to address it in class or outside of class when they can see you in person. A better way to email a professor or faculty member, or a more professional way, is to be specific in your subject line about what the body of the email contains. Include a salutation. And if you're not sure if your professor goes by doctor, calling them professor is totally acceptable. If they sign something sincerely, Dr. So-and-so, referring to them as doctor is also totally fine. So good morning, Professor So-and-so. Who are you? Stating your name up front. What class are you taking with that professor? And if on the syllabus they've included a section, for example, maybe they're teaching multiple sections of Sociology 323, including that section. So for example, SOCI 323-002, or writing it the way I've written it there, where you put section 2 after the course name. Then stating what your concern is. If you have a concern that you want to address in an office hour, but the office hour falls outside of your available time, letting that faculty member know right up front that you've seen in the syllabus that their office hours are whatever they are, and that they conflict with your own availability, helps them to understand that you've already read the syllabus. You know what their office hours are. You've done some homework on your end, and you want to propose another time to meet because you have a question around X, Y, or Z. And then signing off in a professional way. So notice in this email, there's no text lingo, there's no acronyms, there's no slang, there is not a casual nature of addressing someone by their first name. You're really getting detailed in what your question is, and you're also being transparent with the professor about what you've done on your end before you sent the email. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind. If any of the things that we've talked about today are interesting to you, these are all conversations that we would be having within an academic coaching appointment. And this is how you would make an appointment in our scheduling system, which is called Academia. The slides will be made available to you so that you have them in order to refer back to should you be interested in making an appointment. You can also find these instructions on our intranet page. Finally, if and when you are available to visit us on campus, we are fully functional on campus. We are located in Maxwell Library, across from Information Technology Office. And you can always reach out to our main line, or our email address, and further contact information can be found also on our intranet page. I hope this information has been really helpful for you today. This is something that's near and dear to my heart and something that I really love to talk with students about. So welcome to Bridgewater, and please seek me out should that be helpful for you.